Hi, everyone. Just give us one moment. We're going to pull up our cameras here. All righty. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of Cooking Connected. My name is Sajwa, and I'm here with my coworker, Jordan. I'm also here with our volunteer, Julia. Say hi, everybody. So Jordan and I are both coordinators with Cooking Matters Minnesota, and that's in collaboration with the University of Minnesota Extension. A normal Cooking Matters class is a 6-week nutrition-based cooking class, and usually it features a chef and a nutrition educator who work together and they'll do a recipe. We learn a lot of really awesome nutrition that goes along with that recipe, and then we sit together and we eat it. So it's a really fun thing to do. Today we are going to hope to do the same thing, but we're going to be doing it virtually, of course. And we're going to learn the chicken with rainbow vegetables recipe. So before I pass the mic on to Jordan, I do want to do our survey really quick. As always, we do have a survey, and our hope is that you'll go ahead and take that survey for us. Your feedback really helps us continue this kind of work. It helps us improve our videos and helps us move forward and grow. So today's survey code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected, the chicken with rainbow veggies is going to be E097584. And again, we really appreciate you guys, all of you who have taken the survey for us already, and we appreciate the feedback that you're going to give us with this video today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass things off to Jordan.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cooking Connected. As Sajwa said, we are going to be making chicken with rainbow veggies. This recipe was actually inspired by a recipe by Erin from wellplated.com. So thank you to Erin from wellplated.com for this recipe. We do have that link. It should be in the description of our videos. So if you want the recipe, you just go ahead and go to wellplated.com. So this is a really quick recipe. We're kind of going back to a little bit of the basics here. I love this recipe because I really think it's kind of a hallmark for me when I need something quick and I can kind of use all of my vegetables that I have in my fridge and have a really great meal. It's really versatile too, so right up our alley. Have you tried this one, Julia?
I haven't, but I have done roasted vegetables separately before, and it's just one of my favorite things. Roasting vegetables just totally transforms them.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are going to be roasting vegetables and chicken today, and so with that, let's just go ahead and get started. The first thing that we always do, and we mention this in every video, is go ahead and wash our hands. We're going to be washing our hands for 20 seconds. You can sing the ABCs, just making sure we're getting all the surfaces of our hands with hot soapy water. The next thing we're going to go ahead and do is actually sanitize our station. You'll see in my chef's view here, I've got a lot of things already laid out. My station has been sanitized, so I have sanitized my countertops. I also have rinsed my produce that I am using today. That's also another really important step. And finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about is, let me switch my view here, is my mise en place. So as you can see here, I've got all of the stuff I need set up for this recipe. So I've got my spices, all of the utensils that I'll need, and all of my produce ready to go. So this is really helpful when you're working with a new recipe to get everything ready and make sure that you know which steps you're doing. This one is kind of new for me, but kind of not. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with that. So the first thing we always do, I always forget this step, is preheat our oven. So we're gonna go ahead and preheat our oven to 400. Let me do that. Okay, we didn't forget this time. Yeah. It's the worst to forget preheating your oven. So this recipe actually calls for sweet potato. We are using a few extra ingredients. Like I said, I use a lot of ingredients that I have on hand already. So that's why I love this recipe so much. If you went to the farmer's market and you have all this extra produce that you bought that you haven't used yet, it's a good time to use it up. So we are actually going to be, I had some extra beets from my garden. We're going to be using those as well, some cherry tomatoes and a few extra other things. So The first thing we're going to do is just chop up our sweet potato. So this is a really important step to start with first. The reason for this is a sweet potato is really dense and it's going to take a little bit more time to cook. So we're actually going to go ahead and cook this first for about 10 minutes before we start cooking all of our other produce because it doesn't take as long. But this will take a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and start cutting up our sweet potato. It is kind of a funny shape. For remembering knife skills, of course, we're gonna pinch our blade and wrap our fingers around. Just gives you a little more safety, a little more power. So just make sure you are trying to hold your knife that way. I don't work with sweet potatoes that much, honestly. Do you like sweet potatoes, Julia?
I do. Actually, it's one of my favorite starchy vegetables to use.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't use them that much, but they are a really great recipe or really great produce to use right now. Another thing that's in season is actually like different squashes. So you can use that in this recipe as well. I know Julia had a butternut squash from last week.
Yep.
So you can use that.
I need to get that roasting too.
Yeah. You can go ahead and roast that today.
Right.
So I just went ahead and cut it in half. I took off the sides there and I cut it in half, and I'm just making a flat surface because it is rolling around on me a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and just dice it, kind of just chop down and dice it, trying to use our claw. I'm still working on this skill, as you can see. So I'm just dicing it real quick. I'm trying to make sure that they're all similar sizes. Some of them you may notice in my camera here, some of them are a little bit bigger than others. It's important to try to get them all around the same size so then they cook about the same time. I did not do a very good job of doing that right there, but that's okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to do that with the other one.
Yeah, and squash is actually a great thing to bring up because I think that would be a pretty great substitute if you don't have a sweet potato. Dicing some squash, I think, would give that nice bright orange color to it again.
Yeah. So just quickly chopping up our sweet potato. All right. So I've got some big chunks of sweet potato, but you know what? That's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and bake it all today. I don't eat sweet potato that often, so I'm gonna have some nice chunks of sweet potato in there. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're actually going to season this right away. It's about a tablespoon of oil, what you're going to use. You can use a little more, but try to stay around a tablespoon to add to your vegetables right now. The recipe calls for there's my oven. The recipe calls for extra virgin olive oil, I believe, or just some olive oil. I'm actually using a grapeseed. That's just what we have in my household. That's what I prefer, and as I've mentioned in other videos, it has a higher smoke point, so I like to use grapeseed, but you can use canola, you can use all sorts of different stuff. So we just put some olive oil on our sweet potatoes really quick, and that's going to make sure all of our seasonings that we're adding is going to stick to our sweet potatoes when we're baking them. So let's see here, I'm going to add a little pepper, and this one I've been having trouble opening lately. There we go. So the great thing about this recipe, I'm kind of doing a little bit of an Italian inspired with some garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and then some black pepper. You can add a little bit of salt, but I don't like to add salt to my recipes. I like to add it right at the end, right before I'm going to eat it, just so then I don't add quite so much sodium to my recipe. I'm just going to add some seasonings. I like a lot of garlic powder, so we added quite a bit there.
It's always good too to check with the garlic powder because they do also sell garlic salt.
Yeah.
So if you think you have powder, put a bunch on and it was actually garlic salt, then that can really affect the sodium and the taste of your recipe too. So that's something to watch out for.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So make sure you're watching out for that. They are, like Julia said, there is salt in garlic salt. So, all right. So I went ahead and added the seasonings. Like I said, I'm doing kind of an Italian inspired today. I've done Cajun seasonings with this. I've done kind of a curried. So, you know, you can really do a lot of different things with this recipe. you don't like Italian seasoning, you know, use different seasonings. If you have some seasonings at home that you know you like and you want to use, I would say go for it. It's the beauty about roasting your own vegetables. You can season them the way that you want to. So I just threw them in the pan real quick and I kind of spread them out a little bit. So they're going to cook evenly. Like I said, I've got some really big hunks in there, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and bake them real quick for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to throw this in the oven really quick. There we go. So that's your first step for this recipe. Next, you're just going to go ahead and start chopping everything else up. So let's see here. Let's go ahead with my beets. I only had a couple of beets. These just came from my garden, so I'm going to use those today. So I know one of our viewers from last week requested beets, so that's why we have them in today. But yes, you can do a lot of different things with beets, and I love the color of beets. The only downside is sometimes, you know, it gets pretty red on your cutting board. So it's a lot of red in there. Sometimes you don't know if you cut yourself or not. Hopefully you're not cutting yourself.
That's why we use the claw hand when you cut.
So
yeah, but that is one of the great things about this recipe is that you can just use what you have. So like the beets from Jordan's garden are great. Anything that you have in the fridge you can throw in there. It's pretty limitless, and that's a great way to cut costs for this recipe. That you don't have to go out and buy vegetables specifically for this. It's anything that's in your fridge that you didn't use up for the last recipe, or if you have a CSA, community supported agriculture, that you get a box from them of just sometimes random vegetables and you don't know what to do with them. That's another great thing to throw into this.
absolutely. And of course you can always use canned and frozen. We are going to be using some frozen broccoli today. I would encourage you to try those. I've added like canned chickpeas to this recipe. I love chickpeas. My husband does not, so I don't add them as much as I want to, but you know, that's a great protein source to add some chickpeas in. If you didn't want, we're going to be using some chicken today, but if you didn't want that, maybe you're a vegetarian, you could add some chickpeas in for some protein. That would be a really great option.
I use chickpeas all the time for vegetarian protein.
Yep.
I see a question in the comments here. What would you use for the Cajun version? What kind of seasonings do you usually put on that?
So, you know, I go online and I look up a homemade Cajun seasoning recipe. We actually had this in another video. Maybe Sajwa can look up what we've used in the past. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact seasonings, but off the top of my head.
And I know they sell Cajun blends too.
Yes.
So that's something that you were looking for. That's
you know, I like to make my own blend. Just because I don't know how much sodium's in that, so they do have the blend that you can make at home. Same with like taco seasonings.
That would be good in this too.
Absolutely. I've done like a fajita style with this as well. So just like kind of doing like onions and some red peppers or just some other bell peppers and some chicken works great for fajitas.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sajwa, if you have a chance, maybe you could look that up and get that recipe to our viewers. That would be great.
I'm on it.
Thank you. So you'll notice that I have cut up my beets pretty small. These again are another kind of dense vegetable. So I did cut them that small on purpose, just so then they kind of cook a little bit faster. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is my onion. Now you see I've got all this red on my hand. I'm going to quickly wash my hands. Reminds me of The Office. That's so funny. All right. So let's go ahead and cut our onion. I'm just going to, it's rolling around on me. I'm going to take this side off. I'm making my little scrap pile here for my broth in the future. Again, save your scraps and make a nice broth out of it. We have videos on our YouTube page if you want to learn how to do that. And I'm just going to go ahead and peel off my paper here. So I cut that in half. All of that beet juice, that's so funny.
You're going to end up with red onion.
Yeah, there you go. I should have just done a red onion today.
There you go.
I also like to add beets actually to my juices. Like if I ever did a juice in the past, I've added beets. I love to add beets to my juices. All right, so I just went ahead and I cut down the center there just to make it a little smaller. And then I'm going to use the guidelines on the onion to cut down. I am going to make it a little bit bigger today. So just because I kind of want a bigger chunk of onion in there. Then I'm going to cut, so we cut straight down this way once. Then we made this nice little cuts down that way, and then we're going to cut straight down.
Yeah, onions make it easy to chop.
Yeah.
So while you're working on your vegetables, I want to talk about how to make this into a complete meal. Because this gives you the protein with the chicken and obviously vegetables with whatever vegetables you have. So if you look at guidelines from the government, it's called My Plate now. It used to be the food pyramid, but they moved away from that. Now it's called My Plate, and it uses the plate method generally of kind of giving us a guideline of what we should be eating for a healthy diet. And obviously everybody's a little bit different. It's gonna vary what works the best for you. But in general, for the plate method, what you want to do is have half of your plate be fruits and vegetables, a quarter be protein, and then the last quarter be grains. And then there's also a dairy on the side. So if you're looking at the plate, that's the cup on the side. So for this recipe, obviously you've got all of your vegetables taken care of. It's okay to not have fruit with every meal. We want to kind of lean more towards the vegetable side anyway with that. So this is really great for that. So what we would need to add to this to make it into a full complete meal would be grains and dairy, or some sort of dairy substitute, if that's what you prefer. Just make sure that it's fortified with calcium if you do go that way. So what I would probably do with this is add brown rice or quinoa on the side, because I really like those grains. Technically quinoa is a seed, but we call it a grain anyway for nutrition purposes. It's more equivalent to that. So I think that would be great. Jordan, what do you think? Would you add any other kinds of grains?
No, I think brown rice, probably a quinoa would be great. Like you said, those would probably be what I'd stick around. I guess you can add a barley as well if you wanted to try something like that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That would also be a good option as well.
Otherwise, if you're more of a pasta family, you could always do like a rotini or something like that and toss it with the vegetables with a little pesto maybe.
Ooh, yes, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So there are options. There are a lot of options for that. And then with the grains, it's best if you can keep it whole grains. So like a brown rice instead of white rice, you can get whole grain pasta. Or sometimes you can even find pasta that's a blend. Like maybe that'll make it easier for your kids to eat it. If they're used to regular pasta, then it's not quite as grainy as like a regular whole grain pasta. So that might be something to look into too. So then the other thing we would want to add to this would be dairy or a substitute. And the easiest way to do that would probably just grab a glass of milk and have that on the side. Personally, I don't like milk too much. So what I might do would be have some yogurt with fresh or frozen fruit on it and have that kind of as a dessert.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. We are actually adding a little bit of Parmesan at the end with this Italian inspired. Maybe you're going the fajita route with this. You can add some cheese there and do a whole grain tortilla as well. So yeah,
that would be great. Yeah.
A couple of different options. Like I said, this is a really versatile recipe. Sajwa, were you trying to say something?
Yes, I'm sorry. I do have a quick question from one of our viewers. They're wondering, is the sweet potato the only vegetable that we pre-cook or start early?
As of right now, yes. I could have added actually my beets in with my sweet potato. That would have worked well, but any more dense vegetables, so be thinking like carrots, sweet potatoes, Your squashes might be a little more dense depending on what you're working with. So if you have a dense vegetable, I would cook that first, about 10 minutes. And that just gives it a little bit more time to cook. Like I said, it's just a lot more dense, so it needs more time.
I would probably do that with regular potatoes too.
Yeah, yep. So just be thinking about the density of your vegetables, and you know which ones, like when you chomp down on a carrot, it's kind of sometimes hard to bite through. So that's kind of how you can tell.
Yeah.
All right, so I just cut up my pepper here. Just took the top off of the pepper on both sides, and then I kind of laid it out, and then I cut it into strips here. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue chopping on that. I did cut, you will notice I don't have a lot of scraps left over from my pepper. It's really important to use as much as the pepper as you can because these are expensive. They're like $2.50 a piece. So use as much as you can. You don't want to waste money when you're cooking, and you're just throwing that money away is just not a good thing. So just use as much as your pepper as you can.
And if you prefer, I think green peppers are usually cheaper. So,
absolutely,
you know, certain things it might be nice to have, you know, the color. But if you can only afford a green pepper, use a green pepper.
Absolutely. The only reason I chose yellow today is because I wanted a whole bunch of different colors. So I was just looking for a lot of different colors in my recipe.
Yeah.
All right, so then let's see here. We are actually going to use the zest from our lemon and a little bit of lemon juice to season our vegetables. But I am going to bring out my chicken now. Usually with recipes, when we're working with chicken, we want to keep those separate, our vegetables and our chicken separate for as long as possible. You know, we don't want to worry about cross-contamination. We are actually going to mix our chicken in, our cut up chicken in with our vegetables and cook them together. So we're not super concerned about it today, but it's always a good habit to keep your chicken separate from your vegetables, especially if you are not going to be cooking your vegetables. Like let's say this was a salad and you're working with raw chicken. You definitely want to keep these away from your chicken because we don't want to get sick with that cross-contamination and getting chicken juice all over. So I'm going to quickly grab my chicken as well as some frozen broccoli. I will be right back.
Good. So while Jordan's doing that, I just want to talk a little bit about eating the rainbow. And I'm sure you've heard that before. And this recipe is actually even called chicken with rainbow veggies. And we use the rainbow analogy to make sure that you have lots of different colors in your diet. And so that would be, you know, the tomatoes and the beets, we've got red, the yellow for the pepper, broccoli is green. And what you get from that is all of these different colored vegetables have different nutrients in. So there's different arrangement of vitamins and minerals in all of these different vegetables. You know, the orange or yellow has more vitamin C and vitamin A typically, stuff like that. So, you know, the sweet potato again and carrots have a ton of vitamin A if you wanted to get in on that a little bit. So everything's just a little bit of a different layout. So if you eat a ton of different colors, you can make sure to get a ton of those different nutrients kind of more in a balanced way.
Yes. This is a really great recipe for eating the rainbow with our chicken and rainbow veggies. You know, I always like to plug this in. I don't know if anybody else does this, but when I'm making my smoothies, I actually started buying some frozen vegetables to go in my smoothies, just because sometimes, especially in the winter time in Minnesota, there isn't a whole lot of good deals on produce. So, all right. Another way you can eat your rainbow, kind of, is make a smoothie. So I'm going to go in ahead and I'm just chopping my chicken up. This was actually, I just defrosted this chicken. And I cut off a lot of the fat on this. That's something that you can do to save a little money with chicken. If you get chicken with the bone still in it, or actually a whole chicken is even better yet. If you're doing that work yourself, you usually get a better deal. I think I paid less than $10 for like a 5-pound chicken. So I don't know. It was a pretty good deal. But you do have to do a little bit of work. So if you can debone your chicken yourself, or if you can remove the fat yourself or the skin, you typically, like I said, get a better deal out of it. So.
Otherwise, you're paying somebody else to do all that work.
Exactly. You know, I'm gonna actually keep my chicken separate just for a little while longer. And then I'm just gonna wash my hands quickly because I've got chicken on my hands. I'll be right back.
And she's doing that just to avoid cross-contamination. Chicken can sometimes carry salmonella in it, and you know, sometimes we can get that transferred from chicken to the vegetables. Absolutely. So we just want to avoid that as much as possible.
I did want to mention also, you guys may have seen my little paper towel sitting here. If you don't have like something to keep your cutting board from slipping, you can just go ahead and use a wet paper towel. That helps a lot to just keep your cutting board from slipping around on you. A little bit safer, and at the end you can use it to clean up your counters. So
okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to add our oil here. This is 2 tablespoons roughly of oil, just to get, again, those seasonings stuck to our vegetables here. And then we're going to add our seasoning. So you can add whatever you want, whether it's the Cajun seasoning we're talking about, or, you know, if you wanted to go Italian inspired. If you like a little bit more seasoning, this is also another good recipe for you because you can add as much as you want. So
and this is a good one to experiment with too.
Absolutely. I like quite a bit of seasoning on my roasted vegetables. So you guys may think I'm adding a lot, but it's definitely something that I'm going to want to eat later. So that's really important. To flavor your vegetables the way you'd want to eat them. So.
And you have to remember that there's a lot of food there too. It's, you know, not a half a cup of vegetables or anything. So you need to add a decent amount of seasoning for all of that.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, you know, later on, if I roasted them and I decide I want a little bit more, I can always add a little bit more seasoning when I'm reheating them. And as I said, I like to add my salt right before I'm about to eat. So just add a pinch of salt right on top, right before you're going to eat everything, and that will make sure that you taste the salt. All right. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of lemon juice, some lemon zest. So I don't really do lemon zest a lot. I don't have a zester. I just have a grater here. So we're going to do our best today. So I'm just going to go ahead. Hopefully this will work for me. There we go. So that just takes off a little bit of lemon there. Do you add lemon zest to any of your recipes, Julia?
I do, and it's actually a super great way to add more flavor. Again, if we're talking about reducing the salt or having a low sodium diet, adding zest, stuff like that can really boost the flavor. And what's great about the zest is that you don't get the acidity of the juice. Sometimes you just want the flavor and not the acid. So it's a really great tool to have in your arsenal.
Absolutely. And actually that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm just going to be zesting my lemon. If you want, you can use the lemon juice. You can open it up and use the lemon juice. But I'm just going to go ahead and zest my lemon today. Please make sure if you are going to be cutting open your lemon that you do not use the same knife as cutting your chicken with. Just thought about that, so please make sure you're not doing that. That's another way you can cross-contaminate. All right, guys. Now we're going to go ahead. Everything's all seasoned up. I'm going to add in my chicken. And these will cook together. It's really important to be cooking your chicken to temp, so that is 165 degrees that you need that at before you should eat it. That's the safe temperature for chicken. So you may notice everything is chopped up. What we're going to do to temp that chicken is you're going to stack the pieces on top of each other, and then you're going to use your meat thermometer and slice it right through that stack that you just made. There is a little dimple on your meat thermometer. Just make sure it goes past that dimple. And make sure you're not touching the pan or anything so you don't get a false read. But just make sure this is well coated. Usually the seasonings from the veggies will get on the chicken. So. And now we are ready to add this onto our sweet potatoes that we have been cooking. So I'm going to grab that. So everything is cooking really nice here. We're just going to go ahead and add these right to the top. A lot of vegetables today. Holy cow.
It's going to be great for leftovers.
Oh, yeah. And you can always change it up. I always like to do roasted vegetables and just on Sunday, I'll do a whole bunch of roasted vegetables and then I'll add those vegetables to different meals. It's a good way to make sure you're getting your vegetables in. So I'm going to make sure everything's kind of spread out. Make sure it's kind of even on the pan. If you can spread it out more, great. Get a little bit of time in between there. But I'm going to go ahead and throw this back in the oven for about 30 minutes. But before I do that, I just want you guys to look at all of the different colors that are in this. Isn't that beautiful? So we've got purples, greens, reds, yellows, oranges. So we're definitely eating the rainbow today.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this back in for about 30 minutes roughly. Try not to take my whole oven with me. There we go. And as always, I do have a nice little swap out for you guys to see that I made a little earlier. So this is what I made earlier with the chicken and vegetables. So this is what it should look like when you're all done. Add a little bit of Parmesan to the top. We've got our reds, greens, yellows. So this is what it should look like when you're all done.
Beautiful.
Awesome. So that is our chicken with rainbow veggie recipe. Again, we'd like to thank, I believe it's Erica with wellplated.com for this recipe. So just go ahead and check that out if you'd like this recipe. All right. So well, let's see here. There we go.
Thank you so much for that, Jordan. It looks really good. Oh, and the colors are phenomenal. Thank you for demonstrating that for us. So everybody, that comes to the conclusion of another episode of Cooking Connected. We want to thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for being live and in the chat. We had some fun conversations. And before we let you go, we do want to do a quick reminder. Please, if you have some time after this video, take our survey. The link is posted in the description box of this video, and I will post it again in the live chat for you all. Our program code for today's survey is E097584. And again, that's going to be our program code for the survey for this week's episode of Cooking Connected, chicken with rainbow vegetables. And again, recipe credit to Erin Clark with wellplated.com. Check that out. We linked that in the description box as well. All right. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.